Beep, 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 beep. It's the machine. Bradley's with you. Oh, and we've got the man, Wyatt, back Wednesday night. You know, we're here. Man versus machine. The stone cold non-feeler versus the man's beard, feels all the things for fantasy. That's right. Wyatt is the man.
The man.
I'm the machine.
And I'm the machine. We're here yet again for man versus machine. And I like today's topic, Wyatt. I asked you, what do you want to do? And Wyatt said, of course, we need to redraft for rest of season. We're going to give a round one redraft and we're going to snipe each other. It's going to be a beautiful, dangerous thing. And then just give our justifications why. And if that player is drafted, he's off the board. And that's how it's going to work. So Wyatt, I'm pretty excited. It went through, like I had to get my rankings, my list of who I would have. And there were some names that I was like, I need to make sure that they're still in round one. We'll get to the end. Maybe they end up not getting drafted because of how they might get bumped out. We'll talk about it, but it's very interesting to do this thought exercise. There are some tournaments, best ball and otherwise, that allow you to draft for the third quarter or for the second half of the season. I think this is a helpful exercise if you plan to enter into any of those tournaments, but also just what are you game planning for stars and studs the rest of the way? What are our expectations? What is believable? And I think especially analyzing like who we would value as top 12 or round one equivalent players. This is a fun thing to do. Wyatt, any other thoughts before we get into this league winner round one redraft exercise?
Yeah, and I think it can be helpful for like even just your standard redraft leagues, because we're reaching the point in the season where you might be looking at your team saying, I need to consolidate assets and really try to just find, can I get my hands on more elite players to really power up for the playoffs? Do you have a deep team and you're reaching the point where I've already had some bye weeks pass? Do I feel good about the depth that I have that I can like part ways with some of it to try and consolidate? So I think this exercise is good for that.
I love consolidation. I also love giving deference. So Wyatt, with the first pick of the 2025 redraft of the NFL season, who is your selection?
It's going to be Jonathan Taylor, who I think is on this like early 2000s Priest Holmes, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander type of season. Like the way he is pacing right now with this Indianapolis Colts offense, firing on all cylinders. After the first couple weeks, it was like, okay, how long is this going to last? At this point, I think we can just look at it like, okay, they're just really good. Like Daniel Jones, credit to him. Like he looks great. Shane Steichen has a great offensive game plan and is molded perfectly to the team. I kind of always felt like this was a team where if they could just get good quarterback play, they'd be very good because they have a lot of complementary pieces around the quarterback, especially with the addition of Tyler Warren, who's fantastic. So they're constantly in scoring position. Jonathan Taylor can score from anywhere on the field, and he's getting all into scoring position often. With Daniel Jones, he's also used as a receiver. He's got like everything you want, basically. I think it's between him and CMC for first overall pick rest of the season. And we don't have any concern about Jonathan Taylor's health. Where Christian McCaffrey, while has been healthy this year, I can guarantee even the biggest CMC bull in the back of their head, they might have like closed the door on it and locked it as best as they could. Is still thinking like, but what if that calf, that's like the only tiebreaker for me.
Oh, wow. This is great. Jonathan Taylor, 3 touchdowns in 3 separate games so far through 7 games played this year, 11 total touchdowns. He's the RB2 in fantasy points per game right now, 5.3 yards per carry. He's already had more receptions through 7 games than he had in either of 2024 or 2023, where he played 14 and 10 games. So he's getting more involved in the passing game than we had seen in previous seasons. He's getting the workload There's no one really eating into that space. He's the bell cow. And you mentioned the Indianapolis offense has been functioning very well. Daniel Jones, I talked with with Ryan Reynolds earlier this week about like Daniel Jones, and because Ryan, big New York Giants fan, so he had been following the Giants and Daniel Jones for a long time, and he akin this to the kind of renaissance we saw from Sam Darnold last year, especially in the first half of the season, where you saw like everything going right for Sam Darnold and the Vikings, and now we're seeing a lot of really good pieces. You've got good coaching, and the right fit for Daniel Jones, and that's also allowing for Jonathan Taylor, who is healthy this year. I guess I'd push back a little bit on the Jonathan Taylor injury history. He's missed.
He has some in the past.
He's missed at least 3 games in each of the last 3 seasons. So certainly not discounting the fact that CMC can also get hurt. And
I shouldn't say lack of injury history, but not what we dealt with Christian McCaffrey.
No. And we do have the history of Jonathan Taylor absolutely annihilating for fantasy. We look back in 2021, he was the RB1 overall in fantasy points per game. So this is not a surprise. It's within the range of outcomes, certainly for Jonathan Taylor, but it's a career high right now. He's projecting for fantasy points per game. You mentioned the big runs. He's getting involved in the passing game. Everything is going right. And there's not really signs of things to change for Indy. Like there's so many insulated pieces that I think we can have a lot of confidence in Jonathan Taylor. Since he's off the board, he was actually going to be my 102. So here we go. So that leaves me with my 101 still able to be selected here, Wyatt. And with the second overall pick in this redraft, it's Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yeah.
I think the easy 1-2 of a redraft for this is McCaffrey. He's getting some of the touchdowns, but he's getting an insane amount of volume with no Garendo really, and Brian Robinson just like sprinkling in here and there just to allow McCaffrey to get water occasionally.
Right.
McCaffrey's up to 53 receptions through 7 games.
Third in the NFL in receptions.
For context, so he has 53 receptions. For context, when he was healthy in 2023 and 2022, he had 67 and 85 receptions. He's on pace for over 100 receptions as a running back, and he's projecting for double-digit touchdowns yet again. So he, in fact, has more receiving yards than rushing yards this year. And part of that is due to the fact that Kittle has been out and Juwan Jennings has been out and Ricky Pearsall has been dealing with injuries, and the whole receiving core, every receiver for McCaffrey is on his team has been out, and so the team's relied very heavily on him. And the quarterback, like Mac Jones, he can get the ball pretty easily to Christian McCaffrey. The efficiency is a concern, I think, on the ground. But overall explosive plays, he's number 3 among running backs with 16. Now, that's kind of a trade-off when you have a pretty explosive player, but the amount of volume that volume play will be there. The weighted opportunities is just insane. So, yeah, I think they'll continue to ride him. Even when some of these receivers get healthy or come back, I don't think as Shanahan, you move away from that game plan when you're winning games like you are. And so my confidence in Christian McCaffrey is, yes, you continue to lean into him as the top player. And he's my 101 rest of the season.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. As I said, he would be my 102 right there with Jonathan Taylor. It was tough to pick between them. Just that little bit of concern about if that calf or anything like that pops back up again for McCaffrey is what made the difference for me.
All right, Wyatt. We've got 2 running backs off the board. Are you going to keep the streak alive, or are you going to pivot to maybe a wide receiver?
I am keeping it alive. I'm putting Bijan Robinson as my 103. He's right there with Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, really, fantasy-wise. They are fairly close, and basically they separate themselves from all other running backs, which is part of the reason why he's my 103, is that they separate themselves so much. But he is firmly third out of the three to me because I have a little less confidence in the offense as a whole being consistent week in and week out as I do with Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. I think there are times when Bijan Robinson doesn't quite get the way we want him to because of the offensive structure. Tyler Algier getting involved. Michael Penix isn't on that day and the offense isn't moving as well. Like those things can happen around him. The Tyler Algier thing, most weeks it's not an issue because Bijan Robinson is involved so much as a pass catcher as well. We just honestly just don't care. Like there's enough opportunity to go around and Bijan Robinson still gets his. But when that's going on and Michael Penix is not on top of his game and they can't move the ball consistently, those opportunities kind of go away a little bit and that can interfere with Bijan. So for that reason, he's behind Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey, but he's still my 103 because I think, again, big drop off from him to the next running back. And I think unlike at wide receiver, which I think is a little bit tighter throughout like the top 12, I think like like there's a tier here, then there's another tier for me after this, and then like it's a drop, like a big drop, you know.
Big drop.
Yeah.
Big drop. Yeah, Bijan right now, RB3 overall, RB3 in fantasy points per game. He was RB3 last year in fantasy points per game, but now this is how good JT and CMC have been, is Bijan with the RB3 last year in fantasy points per game. He is averaging 4 points per game more this year, and he is still just the RB3.
Right.
So
yeah, absurd.
That's how good those top two are. And the weighted opportunities are certainly there, but you mentioned he's splitting time with Tyler Algier. The Falcons are running the fourth most team run plays per game, but Bijan was only 16th among running backs in carries. So the Algier effect does ding him a little bit in terms of that, but his yards per reception, he just breaks off these big receiving plays. He's got the explosiveness in the receiving game that maybe we had seen a few years ago from Christian McCaffrey, that I think if the volume was a little higher for Bijan, we could make the argument that Bijan would jump McCaffrey. But the other metrics, like Bijan's number 1 yards per touch, number 2 in juke rate, number 2 in evaded tackles, right? He's making moves that indicate to us that he is elite among elites. So I think it's just it isn't quite Arthur Smith bad. Like let's not get anything mixed up here. Bijan is still getting his opportunities, but his opportunity share is just 20th among running backs. So yeah, for that reason, Bijan was actually my number 4.
Okay.
So
like
we're very close. We're very close. Wyatt, but because he's number 4, we're kind of doing the math here that there's still, Bradley's a top 3 there. And with CMC, Jonathan Taylor, and Bijan Robinson off the board, that allows for me to make the selection at number 4, running back Jahmyr Gibbs. There's 4 running backs. Yeah. I know, maybe a little spicy that I kept it up, but it's hard for me to move away from Gibbs when the Detroit Lions are moving toward Jahmyr Gibbs. They're giving him increased touches, both in the red zone, near the end zone, near the goal line, and also we've seen David Montgomery's opportunity share just dwindle. And yes, there's a lot of coach speak over the last few weeks. Oh, we need to get Demont involved. Demo needs more touches. That's not happened. Jahmyr Gibbs is on pace for a career high in receptions, right? He's still averaging over 5 yards a carry. He is RB5 in fantasy points per game, but he's averaging the same amount as Bijan Robinson averaged last year. Still ninth in juke rate, 4th in evaded tackles, 7th in yards per touch. The opportunity share is lower than Bijan, but I think that there's increased confidence in the Detroit Lions just continuing to ride Gibbs and then starting to move away from David Montgomery even more as the season goes on. It could be very soon something like in 70 to 80% touch share for Gibbs as we're talking second half of the season. Wyatt, is this the right move, drafting Gibbs at number 4?
He's not my 104. Hard to argue against it because Jahmyr Gibbs is so darn good. But it just is that unless that trend really does continue to go further and further, where he's getting more and more the opportunities in the backfield, or we get a Montgomery injury, he's just not quite at the tier for me of those other running backs. And I prefer actually 2 wide receivers over Gibbs in my top 12.
You love it. Love it. All right. Before Wyatt gives his 5th player off the board, we're gonna get to 5 through 12. But before we do have a word from Fast Draft about the Quick 6 Super Slam.
Pour one out for an incredible best ball season. It was a breakout 2025 for Fast Draft, but now the NFL action has started. That means it's DFS season. That's right. You might think, oh, wow, DFS, I can't win DFS. Oh, but you can on Fast Draft. You just pick any 6 guys, and you put them in a handful of booster spots. There's no salary rubric you have to follow. You're not going up against thousands of killer bots in these tournaments. Oh, no. These are regular people grabbing their 6 favorite plays of the week, and that's all you have to do. And we post the ownership so that you can choose how much chalk you want. There is no drafting. It's called the Quick 6 Super Slam. The Quick 6 Super Slam is the signature DFS contest at Fast Draft. It is changing DFS. We are making DFS great again. So go to fastdraft.app and use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match. And let's go start drafting faster.
That's right. Welcome back to Man vs. Machine. Draft faster on Fast Draft. Bradley and Wyatt here redrafting from the player pool. Top 12 picks. At the 101, Wyatt selected Jonathan Taylor. Just to recap for the people, at 101, Jonathan Taylor. I selected Christian McCaffrey at the 102. Wyatt so wisely selected Bijan Robinson at the 103. And Wyatt held the spice. He thought that my Jahmyr Gibbs pick maybe is a next tier down, but I went with Gibbs at 104. And that tees up Wyatt to make a selection at 105. Who is your selection at 105?
This is honestly probably the hardest decision I had when doing my top 12 because it was picking between the 2 wide receivers I put ahead of Gibbs. I'm going to go with Puka Nacua at 104. And I'll just say it that my 105 is Jackson Smith-Njigba, who might just also be Puka Nacua. Their advanced metrics are extremely similar. Jackson Smith-Njigba easily leads the NFL in receiving yards, but his quarterback is Sam Darnold. And while Sam Darnold is playing lights out right now, he was doing that for Minnesota last year too. And what happened at the end of the season? So
turned into a pumpkin.
Right. Puka Nacua, I get it. Still dealing with the injury. He's going to be coming back at some point. If I'm thinking rest of the season, what wide receiver do I want more than anyone? It's Puka Nacua with Matthew Stafford. It's incredible. You can't say a bad thing about Puka Nacua. Maybe the closest thing you could say is that, once they get in the red zone, they're leading towards Devontae Adams' way. But even with that, it hasn't mattered. So I'm still keeping Puka ahead of Jackson Smith-Njigba by just this tiny bit because he's got Matthew Stafford and JSN has Sam Darnold.
I have Puka in my top 12.
I don't like the way you started that by saying you have him in the top 12. What does that mean?
I did have him in my top 12. I do. In fact, he's in my top 10. but
Okay.
there are some wide receivers I have ahead of Puka.
All right. I didn't realize we were going to get this different with it.
This is great. So at least we haven't gone like I didn't even have him in my top 12, Wyatt, like
Man.
but at 5, Puka Nacua. You mentioned Devontae Adams being there. I think that's my that's a thing. And the other part is the injury history and the injuries that you kind of dinged CMC on, but Puka has been dealing with
Fair.
all these different things, and he does seem to play in a way that leads him to more physical contact or middle of the field that maybe he just needs to learn how to take a hit. I don't without getting hurt
or not hit so many other people himself.
Yeah, so I really do like Puka. He's been a player that even before pre NFL draft, just massive exposure to this guy in Dynasty because I just really liked him, and I thought the fit was really good for the Rams. But now we're multiple years in, and it's still clear that Puka deserves to be in this spot, but he is not in my top 5 there, Wyatt. So it's okay.
Okay.
This is why we have man, we have machine to dissect it out. My 5th player is wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. So Amon-Ra, this was
coming in at the 106, huh?
Yeah. So Amon-Ra St. Brown ends up being my selection here. And what I know that touchdowns are not sticky. I get it. But he's also number 2 in red zone targets and number 2 in red zone target share. When they get down in the red zone, it's either Gibbs or it's Amon-Ra. And to move away from that, especially in most of us are playing in PPR. Like some of us have half PPR. I get it, but it doesn't matter. Like Amon-Ra is number 6 in target share, number 6 in target rate. And he's not only getting all of these targets, but he's also getting the red zone, end zone looks. That's like the perfect combo of your Puka Nacua and your Devontae Adams. He's like both players in one, but he just doesn't stretch the field. That's his Achilles heel, is he catches the ball a lot closer to the line of scrimmage than many of these other players. Still a top dominator player, fantasy points per route run, fantasy points per target. He is my wide receiver 1 rest of season. So let's
Pretty
go.
bold, being honest.
Okay.
I think it's pretty bold to have him over. He's my 5th wide receiver in my top 12. So
Ooh.
Yeah, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, always have. He's having a fantastic season. I love that he's getting used in the red zone more. I just think when you stack him up against some of these other wide receivers, he's never having those 20 target games like some of these wide receivers have, because the Lions have so many options for how they can win games. It's the only thing that's stopping me from putting him up higher, because he's consistent. He's always consistent,
Sure.
It's just those 3-week stretches for the playoffs. I'd rather have these other players that I've got here.
Fair enough. I know your next selection is probably Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
You mentioned him. JSN is also what is my wide receiver 2. So
Okay, yeah,
we're in lockstep there.
Yeah, I mean he's fantastic. It's he's so ridiculous. Like I said, he basically is Puka Nacua too. That's what he's doing. So all the advanced metrics are fantastic. He's working downfield. In fact, in a way, he's different than Puka Nacua because he's working downfield so much, compared to what Puka Nacua is doing. But the way I say he's like him in that he's infallible as long as he's playing.
Yes.
The target share, the yards per route run, all the volume and efficiency you could ever ask for. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, his 16.4 yards per reception. For reference, the last 2 years, JSN 11.3 and 10 flat. to start his career. He is number 1 in receiving explosive rating, number 1 in wide receiver explosive plays, number 1 in target share, target rate, deep targets, yards per team pass attempt, formation adjusted yards per route run. Number 1, as I said, in explosive rating, fantasy points per route run. Yeah. It's
All the
it's
things.
hard to make the argument for JSN outside the top 2 of wide receivers rest of season. So that's where both Wyatt and I have him.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Chuck Bass, who we did a show this summer on press coverage where we did our hot takes. And one of the hot takes he brought was that JSN was going to be wide receiver 1 on the season.
Ooh. There we go. Love it. Shout out to Chuck. We love
Shout
Chuck.
out to Chuck.
We love Chuck. Chuck is great. I need a message. He's had some bangers of tweets.
He has a knack for it.
Speaking of banging for fantasy football, this player was the consensus 101. He's fallen to the 108 for me. Jamarr Chase, for him to just hang out here, I think the right hedge, because even with Jake Browning, there were multiple top 5 weeks for Chase. But now that he's had Joe Flacco, right, we saw a 23 target game, 23 targets. Yeah. That's 16 for 161 and a touchdown. So you can't let Chase fall that far, Wyatt. I mean, look, I'm feeling pretty good about selecting him there. We know the arguments for Chase. The reason why he's falling this far is because Flacco could turn into a pumpkin and he could have just dead arm syndrome that we had seen from, Roethlisberger, or we had seen from Peyton Manning, or we had seen from these legacy pocket quarterbacks, and then just they turn into dust. But Flacco, we thought that would happen 3 years ago, and he's looking like less turnover worthy Jameis Winston. Like, he's just willing to just chuck the ball to his guys, and Jamarr Chase is taking advantage of that. So we're here for Jamarr Chase. The arguments are pretty simple. He's still the wide receiver 1 in Cincinnati. T. Higgins is really taking a step back this year in terms of target share, in terms of explosive games. So yeah, getting Chase to the 108. I'm happy about that. Any other thoughts about Chase?
Chase is my 107, so this is who I would have picked as well at your pick. Yeah, like you said, the only actual concern for Jamarr Chase, and it is a real concern, is when does the Joe Flacco magic die? Because we don't know.
Nope, we don't. All right, Wyatt, you've got the 109, and this is where I think we're getting into like pick your poison tier, flavor of the day. Maybe not. Maybe there is a clear 109. Tell us, Wyatt, what do you think?
This is my 108.
Okay.
And it's CeeDee Lamb. Fantastic wide receiver on what is this year's Cincinnati Bengals. The Cowboys have to pass as much as they can because the defense is terrible. And that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, they're every game in and game out. That Dak is dropping back 40 times, and he's also playing some of the best football of his life. Now CeeDee Lamb is back. Looks like they did everything right to have him come back and be healthy, because first game back, he was essentially a full-time wide receiver again. He took some plays off, but basically ran all the routes. So no concerns for him moving forward. Every healthy game he's had so far, he went over 100 yards. It's only 3 games, but in every one of those games, over 100 yards. I expect that to continue, basically. I would not be surprised if he averages over 100 yards per game the rest of the season. And we know that he can score a lot of touchdowns in this offense with Dak.
Lamb is also my 108. So this was the next player as you mentioned, Dak is having a career year in terms of completion percentage. It's a career high for him. Yards per attempt, it was up from last year. He's moving around in the pocket just a little bit, just a little bit more. But his game log is what's so impressive, right? He has at least 3 passing touchdowns and doesn't have an interception over the last 4 games. He's been the quarterback 1, 3, 6, and 9 with those stats. And you have Lamb and you have Pickens. It's looking great for both. Yep. Everything's opening up. You mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals 2.0. I mean, this is the Jamarr Chase, T. Higgins corollary, where you have the go up and get it type of guy versus the target share win everywhere type of guy with Lamb. And yeah, this offense is going to score lots moving forward. And I think there's even argument maybe that Lamb could be a top 5 pick in this. He could be a top 3 pick. I think for him to go at 109 is a good value there, Wyatt.
Yeah. But after here, which is where I think like it actually gets hard to finish up this first round. This is where I started to have difficulty deciding.
Yeah, so maybe this is a little spicy. Fine, I don't care. Next for me is Rashee Rice. Why it's like, all right,
I'm gonna let you say your bit.
Hollywood Brown is a nothing burger. Travis Kelce, a nothing burger. Juju Smith-Schuster, a nothing burger. The running game has been mostly inept, and yet, and Tyquan Thornton, like, let's not get carried away here. Rashee Rice is the target share guy, and it was clear in week 1 of being back that he's healthy and they want to get him involved a lot very quickly, lots of touchdowns. And Mahomes, even before Rice, was what? A top 3 quarterback in fantasy points per game. The quarterback 1, it depends on your scoring settings. Like, you want the number 1 target share earner on a Mahomes, like he's having a career year on a Mahomes team. I think that's the very simple argument, the calculus, that Xavier Worthy is never going to be a 25% target share guy. Like, he's going to be 18 to 22. It depends on the week with a couple rush attempts. But Rice is going to get your 25%. And so as we've seen just over the course of the last few years, Travis Kelce tends to fall off even more as the second half of the season goes on. This is a chips in on Rice continuing to produce of what we saw last year, and then the signs are still there for this year. So give me Rice as a top 10 pick tied to the Kansas City Chiefs.
He is an honorable mention for me. I don't actually have him in my top 12. No hate on him. I do expect him to be that number 1 target for Mahomes. Just continuing basically what he was doing at the beginning of his 2024 season, at the end of his 2023 season. But I'll just move it into why I have this player ahead of him, and that's Josh Jacobs, who I think is the clear RB5, almost in a tier with Jahmyr Gibbs, but not, because Jahmyr Gibbs is, I think, just straight up a much better player than Josh Jacobs to begin with, and more efficient player than Josh Jacobs. We have more faith in the Detroit offense than the Packers, even though they're both great offenses. But Josh Jacobs, ever since he's got to Green Bay, this offense has run through him. He gets used a lot in the red zone. He's been used a good amount as a pass catcher for them as well. And I think, like, after him, running back falls off. Now, there's another running back who I have as an honorable mention who's like close to scoring the same as him, but I think like the environmental factors are so much worse for that other running back that there's a gap between him and Josh Jacobs to me. So when I'm like thinking about drafting this round, like, I think there are a few wide receivers who are all close, and I don't think there's another running back who I would put in the same category as Josh Jacobs. So that's what separated it for me and put him as my 110. But in this case, the 111.
This case, the 111. Go Pack, go. Josh Jacobs, an honorable mention for me. I think that, this is you made all the arguments. He's getting the volume. This is an offense that relies so heavily on making sure that the running back is successful. Jordan Love, maybe he just needs his weapons back, and that's going to unlock some more things for him as a passer. Like Jaden Reed, when is he going to get back from the IR? Is Christian Watson, going to be a producer in the second half of the season, coming off the ACL tear from last year? Is Matthew Golden going to step up? There's a lot of pieces that still need to come together for the passing game. Is Tucker Kraft going to be a consistent contributor? Because of all of those questions, Josh Jacobs, an honorable mention for me, but very, very solid pick, I think, here at 111.
All right, let's hear the 112.
All right. This is a player that it was split in the fantasy circles about who is going to be the tight end one. Who is going to be the tight end one? Yeah. And so here at the 112, give me Trey McBride.
Okay,
Trey McBride.
Go on.
Yeah. So part of it is also positional value. I think that the clarity of who the tight end one is, Trey McBride, we were talking about touchdown regression all season, how McBride only had counted 2 touchdowns in 16 games for the Arizona Cardinals. And he's already at 4 receiving touchdowns for this season, averaging 16.2 fantasy points per game. This is a team that has continued to struggle to get Marvin Harrison the ball consistently and has just relied so heavily on McBride. He's averaging almost 10 targets per game. So number 1 in tight end target share, number 2 in target rate, number 2 in tight end deep targets, number 1 in tight end red zone targets, design targets, first read targets, red zone target share, second in design target share, number 1 among tight ends in first read target share, number 1 in expected fantasy points per game. This is a player that, given just the gap between where all the other tight ends could be, yes, Brock Bowers hasn't produced because of the injury, but are we confident in even just average quarterback play from the Raiders to get him the ball in the second half of the season? Maybe it's Jacoby Myers who gets traded. It's possible. But we just saw a complete trouncing last week. There were 30 total plays that the Raiders ran in week 7.
Real bad.
It was half of the league, below half of the league average of plays, offensive plays. Whereas we don't see anything close to that type of floor, even with Jacoby Brissett stepping in for Kyler Murray. So I'm going to continue to lean into the Trey McBride truth. The positional discrepancy between him and other tight ends is just so massive. So give me Trey McBride to close out the first round.
I thought about having a tight end involved here, but didn't end up writing down any of them. For me, it was that I don't think there's a big enough gap between any of the tight ends between each other to warrant being in the top 12 or as an honorable mention for me. I only put 3 honorable mentions, so it's not like I got too deep into it. I imagined right after this is where one of them would be, but I don't know. Trey McBride isn't even the point per game leader at tight end right now. That's Jake Ferguson, which I know CeeDee Lamb just got back, and that affects things. But honestly, it didn't in the first game because he scored 2 more touchdowns. And then Tyler Warren, I think he's nipping on his heels. So yeah, it was just I didn't feel confident saying I do think Trey McBride is tight end 1 rest of the season right now, though. I think it's enough of a conversation that I couldn't have him up here.
Fair enough. All right. Who are some of your? You mentioned that you have 3 honorable mentions. You've already hit on. Did you hit on one already? I feel like you
Rashee Rice was an honorable mention for me.
got it.
I actually have 4 players here that have not been talked about yet.
I only have one. I only have one
because we
left.
drafted. Yeah, so Justin Jefferson.
Yep, he's on my list as an honorable mention. Well, he's actually 12 for me. He made 12.
He's 11 for me. So Justin Jefferson, we know who he is. It's just quarterback play, and he kind of transcends his quarterback play. It hasn't been quite where we want it so far this season because he hasn't scored enough touchdowns.
Right.
But like you kind of expect that to come around. But that's why he's down at the end. Emeka Puka is my 112.
Ooh.
Especially with the news of Mike Evans being done for the season.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I don't know if we see Chris Godwin or Jalen McMillan again this season. So, I mean, he was already producing at this level. It was just on high efficiency. But now we can like basically pencil in the volume that we'd want. Then I'll throw out Devon Chan, who was the running back I mentioned that is scoring closely to Josh Jacobs and like could be in that conversation, but because Miami is such a dumpster fire that like I can't put him in my top 12 because like the bomb could drop out of everything going on in Miami at any point.
Oh.
And the last one I had written down is Drake London, because there are times when Drake London looks like he should be like a top 5 player in fantasy, but it's too inconsistent. And basically it's kind of just whenever Darnell Mooney is healthy, he doesn't get there. If anybody wants to like see all the splits, Scott Barrett tweets about it, I think like every week, because he's been fighting the good fight on that stat for a while. That basically Drake London's big games only come when Darnell Mooney's out. Otherwise, they're actually fairly close in production. So I can't have him top 12, but like, would it surprise you if during the fantasy playoffs, Drake London's like the number 1 wide receiver for just that 3-week stretch? Like that could happen. So that's why like I had to mention him.
Yeah, the Drake London thing is very interesting. It's similar logic to why Bijan is at the back end of that first tier that we talked about earlier. JT, CMC, and then Bijan, because of the opportunity. Like the Atlanta Falcons, we have a little bit of an eyebrow raise of can they consistently produce, and Penix is planning to play in week 8 for those who are in superflex leagues and probably are forced to start a player like Michael Penix. But yeah, the Drake London thing, that's very, very interesting. I'll have to check out Scott's tweets, but Darnell Mooney, the dirty little secret about him is that even when he was on Chicago, when he was healthy, he was averaging a 23 to 25% target share.
He's a good player.
He is. So for him to eat in that way
he had like the quietest 1,000-yard season for the Bears.
Very quiet, because that was Matt Nagy year, wasn't it?
I think that's right. Matt Nagy, get out of our lives.
But even more wild is that Matt Nagy and Arthur Smith are now like top candidates to take over in Tennessee. So
please send Nagy over there. He can take that team. Let's get him off the Chiefs.
That would be great.
They succeed in spite of him.
Oh, this is great. Well, hopefully all you listeners and viewers enjoyed taking a look at a redraft of the first round, identifying league winners, discussing the tiers, discussing the players that both Wyatt and I have in our top 12, but also a couple honorable mentions. Egbuka, Drake London, Jefferson, Josh Jacobs, Rashee Rice, all players that feel fringy, but could be made arguments for being top 10. So on behalf of Wyatt, I'm Bradley. Until next time, everyone, good luck with week number 8.